In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these Scandinavian stars from 2.5-inch strips of fabric. So usually these stars are taught as no-sew stars. They take 4 pieces of fabric, and I was playing around with them, doing lots of different sizes because I wanted to make some cute ones for my tree, and I thought, all this ironing is taking too long. So I started experimenting, and I found that using my extra 2.5-inch scraps of fabric or a full piece, you can make 2 stars. Look at how cute they are. Who is ready for Christmas? Let's take a look at some of the things you can use to make these Scandinavian stars, whether you are going to do the no-sew folded method or if you're going to sew your strips to make a thinner star like this one. I'm going to show you today how to use extra 2.5-inch strips that you can get pre-cut like this. You can also use different size strips. You can use bias tape makers to help make the ironing and folding easier. If you're doing the no-sew method, I highly recommend you grab some tube turners. It just makes turning these long tubes in right side out so much faster. I like to use a little bit of glue. If you have a small iron like this, I find it to be very helpful. You can use a regular iron, but because we're going to be ironing just these small little corners, if you have something smaller, that is going to be a lot easier. And these are pretty inexpensive. You'll find links to all these tools in the video description. Then I also like to use these reverse tweezers. They're basically tweezers that open when you squeeze them. And when you're not squeezing them, it holds tight to whatever you have gripped. You can also use needle grippers. This is the same type of thing. You just hook this. I find this to be easier to use, but use what you want. You can also use regular ones. Then you can add some embellishments, like you'll see on this one. I added this little tassel. Those are quite inexpensive as well. I think I got 200 for under $10 on Amazon. And then also some fabric clips. Also optional, but helpful. So let's get started. You can make these ornaments in any size you want. I would say probably up to 5 or 6 inches. If you get much bigger than that, it's not going to hold its shape as well. But as you can see, I've made a variety. I just had a lot of fun practicing, testing, and deciding which method that I liked best. I'm going to show you how to use 2.5-inch strips of fabric, which again, you can buy in a big old roll. I'm going to be using 3 of the fabrics from my spring barn quilts collection because it has some cute greens and reds that we can choose from. Or this is a great way to use up scraps that you have from binding you didn't use or other fabric that you purchased. So this one was made with this. We're going to be sewing with that. You can also do no-sew where you're just ironing. I did this little one with this bias tape maker to help do the first fold. This one with this bias tape maker. This one I just ironed. This one was a little harder to put together because it is so small when you're doing this part. So I'd highly recommend you do this size to begin with and then start playing around with some of the other sizes. You can find written directions for this, how to fold these stars, and also the different sizes of fabric that you need to either do no-sew or sewn together for a variety of star sizes. So there will be a link to that below this video as well. Okay, so this is a 4-inch star, and I don't know if you can tell, this one was made no-sew. This one was sewn together. So if you're sewing, you're going to take your strip, however long it is, and if it is a full strip from one of these rolls, it's going to be your width of fabric. So you're going to be able to make 2 Scandinavian stars out of 4 different pieces that are the full length. Otherwise, you need about 12 to 15 inches long if you're using scraps by 2.5 inches. So what you're going to do for the sewn, and I'm not going to show you how to sew it, we're going to spend most of our time showing you how to fold this. You're going to fold this in half, right sides together. You're going to sew across one end, and then you're going to go all the way down the strip, okay, making a tube. Then you're going to take a tube turner. This 1/2-inch tube turner works great. You're going to turn that right side out, or you can use a safety pin if you don't have these. But if you do much turning, these things are less than $10, totally worth the investment. I also will add a link below the video to a video that shows you exactly how to use these if you are not familiar. If you're going to do the no-sew, you're going to have a larger piece of fabric. So instead of a 2.5-inch piece of fabric that is sewn together, you're going to need a piece of fabric that is 4 inches wide. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half and press it. Then you're going to open it back up and press each side into that first crease, and then you're going to fold that. So those are the 2 different ways to get your strips that we are going to fold together. Now I have already made one of these with the greens and reds, a little more traditional, but this would look really cute on a tree too, I think. And these are sewn together. So let me show you how we are going to fold these. Now this one is made with 4 different fabrics in 2 colors. So it really could be 2 of the same, right? Like two of these and 2 of these, skip these. But I decided to do 4 different ones because it's going to be easier for you to follow along if we have different fabrics. Now you'll notice on this star, we have red, green, red, green. If you're using 2 different colors, you want to make sure it's not red, red, green, green. You want it to look kind of cool like that. And it looks like that on both sides. So I'm going to show you how to make sure we have that happen. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to fold each of these pieces of fabric in half. And you can either finger press or press that with an iron. I'm just going to finger press it for now because I want to show you how to weave these together before getting my iron and ironing board out. So our 2 reds are going to be piece 1 and piece 2. And then this is going to be piece 3 and piece 4. And the way to put these together is to pay attention to where the fold is. So for piece 1, you want the fold at the top. For piece 2, we want the fold at the bottom. Now you can put them like this parallel, but because we're going to have to push them together so that all these folds are close, I'm going to line them up like that. So they're not as close as they're going to be, but they're closer than if we had them lined up perfectly. So that's the easiest part. Now, piece number 3, which is either one of these greens, we're going to have the fold on the left. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put piece number 1 in between piece number 3. See how that is just sandwiched in there? And then we're going to just lift this and we're going to put piece number 3 sandwiched in between both halves of piece number 2. Okay? So this one, totally in between. This one, totally in between. Now this is piece number 4. We want the fold on the side that we haven't done a fold yet. So we want the fold on the right. And then we are going to put piece number 2 inside piece number 4. And if you're following along, you're going to guess that both of these strips are going to go in between the 2 halves of piece number 1. So now these are woven together. The next step is to just gently pull them so that they're all together. You don't want to pull it so tight that anything buckles. You just want them together so that there's not space. I'm going to keep everything parallel and just gently ease that together. So we have fold, 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 2 going all 4 directions. If you have put this together correctly, when you turn it over, you're going to have that 4 patch the same way. All right, that is step 1 of the weaving. The next step is to take the top piece of piece 2 and fold that down. And then I'm just going to finger press that. You're going to fold down and across and up and across clockwise. So we're going to do piece number 2, then piece number 3 goes across, then piece number 1 goes up, and then piece number 4 goes across here, and then you're going to thread it through there. And then again, you're just going to adjust it. See, now if you pull too hard, it's going to buckle. You don't want that. You want to make sure everything is together but stays flat. And then just to double check the back. Okay, still beautifully woven. We are good to go. Now these ends are much longer than what we need. I basically sewed an entire strip with the fabric in half, turned it right side out, and just cut it in half so that I could make the 2 stars. It's not quite long enough to make 3, so we just have extra fabric. It's better to have too much than too little. So next, I'm going to get the iron and the ironing board out, and I'm going to show you how to make these points. Now we are going to make the points of the star by folding the fabric, it's almost origami-ish, and then tucking it under these 4 pieces on both sides. So the first thing you need to look at is how these are folded together. So this one, you can see I can fold that back, so I'm going to be able to tuck this in here, but this one is a fold. Every other one is going to be able to tuck. So we're going to tuck, 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 tuck. Then we're going to turn it over and we're going to do the same thing. So you're never going to be making a point and putting it under this fatter folded part. You're only going to be putting it under this single layer of fabric. So that is one of the most important things to remember when putting these stars together. Now I have my mini iron heated up, and we're going to start with this one because it's the single thing. So we're going to just fold this to the side so that this is now parallel to these two strips, and it is creating a nice line. You're always going to fold away from the center of your grid. And then I'm just going to press. Next, we're going to fold down. So now this strip is parallel with this one and going across these, and you want it to make a nice point. Sometimes that overlaps a little bit, but just kind of pay attention to what that point is going to look like. Give that a little press. And then the third fold in press is when we fold this in half. I'm going to press that. And then I find it easiest to clip that. It just keeps this together so it doesn't pop up, and also helps it stay that way as that fabric cools. Now, this is way too long because if we were to slide it under here, it would come way out and it's not going to look cool like our star. So you're going to take scissors and you're going to cut 1/4 inch from the bottom of this piece. If it's a little bit crooked like that is just because of the angle that I did, that's totally fine because we're going to tuck it under there, never to be seen again. Now, you can either do this with your finger. This is where I like to use my reverse action tweezers. So I'm just going to lift this and I'm going to push this under with the tweezers. And then sometimes I'll come from the other side and I'll grab the fabric. And the main thing is that you want that piece of fabric to be flat. You don't want it to stay folded under there. And you want to make sure this red fold here is right up against this line here. So if you have to pull that under a little bit more, you can. And we will adjust that at the very end, but you want to get it as close as possible in the beginning. And then sometimes you need to give that a little tug again because you might loosen it as you put that under there. And now I'm just going to twist it, and we are going to do the other 4 points on this side. So we're going to basically do every other point so that it tucks under the single fabric and not this piece that is folded over top of the fabric. So you just do the same thing. If you don't have tweezers, you can always use your scissors to just kind of flatten that piece down there. You can use regular tweezers to kind of grab at it. You just want to make sure that you're peeking under and making sure that that fabric is nice and flat. You'll see sometimes it slips a little bit, so it's not tucked in as well. That is just based on how tight this fabric is and how well you get it tucked in. But that is why I always like to add glue at the end to make sure that these stay together and don't fall apart on your Christmas tree, or if you use them as a gift tag and things like that. Okay, so we have these 4 done. Now we're just going to turn it over and do the other 4. Because the back side is where we have access to the other 4. Now, when you're doing this, this is especially why I like to have a little iron, because you don't want to iron onto fabric clips because they are plastic. I guess you could use pins that wouldn't be as dangerous to hit with a regular iron, but I just find it a lot easier when you can see what you're doing when you only have a really small iron. Plus, you won't get as hot because you don't have this whole huge iron all heated up, and you really don't need it. You just need that small space to press. Now, I've always done the glue at the end, but you could probably do it as you go so that this holds. So we just folded that one under. Now I'm just going to stick the glue right under this flap, and I'm going to get it underneath that fabric that we shoved under there and on top of that fabric that we put under there so that it is going to be glued in place. And if you need to adjust this a little bit when you're doing that, you can do it like that and then just hit it with the heat to dry the glue. If you're using a regular iron, you don't want to use steam because the goal is to dry it, not to add more moisture. I think that might be my new favorite way of doing this, to just do it as I go, because then you don't have to adjust it as much. What do you think? Glue as you go or glue at the end? We'll glue as we go on this side, and then I will flip it and show you how I glue at the end on the other side. So you can compare and contrast and decide which one makes the most sense for you. But let me know in the comments which one you think you will try. So those are lined up nicely. Then I'm going to grab the glue. I'm going to put it under that flap, and then I'm going to put it on top of that flap and under this piece. I'm going to make sure that's pulled nicely, that is pushed in where I want it. Then I'm just going to press with my finger, and then I'm going to press with the iron to dry that glue. These make such cute Christmas tree ornaments. You just want to make sure that you don't pick a fabric that is so dark, especially a dark green, that it would blend into your tree. So make sure you pick colors that are going to stand out. And you don't have to use Christmas fabric, as I'm showing you. I haven't used any Christmas fabric. This fabric is from my Spring Barn Quilts collection. And then the other ones that I showed you, I used whites and golds from my Honeybees and Flowers, Please. So you can just pick whatever colors you like, whether you use 1 color, 2 colors, or 4 prints in 2 colors is what I'm doing here. And it presses better if you don't have your iron sitting on top of this thicker part when you're doing this. So I have the butt of it down, or you can come in from this angle. So as I'm working on these, I'm thinking these could be really cute as place cards. Like you could use them on your Christmas table or for a party. Put the napkin down and then put this on top of the napkin. You could still make it into an ornament. Maybe it's like a little favor for your guests to take home. That could be really cute. Let me know in the comments if you have some other ideas for how you might use these stars. Okay, so those 4 are already glued because we glued as we went. This side we didn't do any glue, so I'm just gonna come in and do it now. And this one slipped a bit, so I need to grab and pull that back in. And you just need a little dot, you don't need a lot. That one also slipped. So you'll see when I didn't glue as I went, I am having to come back in and just do some minor adjustments, but did not take long at all. Really doesn't matter how you do that. And so then I will just make sure I hit all 4 of those spots, the iron. Okay, now we can take these clips off. And then if any of these points look a little funny, you can just hit them with the iron again. But there's our star, and now we can just decide how we want to finish it. First, I decided whether I wanted the red or the green up. So on this one, I put the green as the top. This one, I'm gonna do the red as the top. So I'm going to use green floss instead of red because I want it to be the opposite. I'm just gonna take about, 8 to 10 inches. I really don't measure it. I just wing it on this part. And I use all 6 strands. And then I'm just going to poke it through right here so that it goes through the overlapping parts on each side towards the top. I'm just going to get that through. I'm going to pull that so that this is even, and then I'm just going to decide how long I want this hanger to be. I'm thinking about there, so I'm just going to tie a quick knot. I don't have a lot of rhyme or reason to this, just what I think will look good. And then I'm just going to snip the top of the knot. So this can be ready right there like that. Grab a few of these other stars just to show you. These I just did the gold. Here's a 1-colored star. Another 1-colored star. This would be so elegant to have a lot of white stars on a green tree. And then you can add embellishments. Like I said, this one I added the little tassel. I grabbed a red tassel, so I'm going to show you how I put that on. We'll put a red one, although it's a little bright red for this. Let's see. I bought a big old pack of tassels. I think they were under $10 for 200. So let's see if there's a better color. That red's not good. Do a green again, or let's see. That could be pretty. And actually, had I decided to do that first, I would have picked a floss that matched that. I'm just gonna grab like 5 inches of floss. That one threaded much better. And I'm just gonna put it through the same way, but on the opposite side. And then for this, you could just thread it through, but I want this to hang down so it kind of spins along with the star. So I'm going to leave this loop that came with the tassel, and I'm just going to tie it with this red thread. So I'm just going to put it through there, tie that in a knot, and cut off the ends. And if you think that's too long, you could also just take the scissors and trim that to a different size as well. But that is how easy they are. And you can just kind of make these and then go to town with embellishments. You can add tassels, you could add buttons, you could add beads, decorations, anything you want. So let me know in the comments who you're going to make these for, how you're going to make them, if you're going to embellish them, what kind of ideas you have. And I hope this was a helpful tutorial because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get these folded efficiently and properly so that I can whip up a bunch of Scandinavian stars for this holiday season.